Give God a great amen as Pastor Ray comes this morning.
Amen. Thank you, man. Thank you. He is a real gift. He is a real gift. I spoke, isn't Jared wonderful? Yeah, Jared's wonderful. I spoke at a graduation a year or so ago, and Jared was this big shot. It was at Clayton State College. He was a big shot. He was seated at my table, and I thought, God, this guy is unbelievable. And then to have him come over and begin to worship with us, and Jared, thank you so much. You're just wonderful. You know, there's a famous quote attributed to Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart, about the importance of attitude. He said this: the longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts, and it's more important than success, than what other people think or say or do. It's more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for the day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I'm convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it, and so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitude. You ever notice quotes on the internet are often misattributed? For example, Einstein never said, "Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid." Einstein never said it. We pass it around all the time as if he did. Abraham Lincoln didn't say this. The trouble with quotes on the internet is that it's difficult to determine whether or not they are genuine. I guarantee Abe Lincoln did not say that. And the quote about attitude that I started the service with, and I attributed it to Sam Walton, it wasn't Sam Walton. It was actually a pastor and author, and he was an early hero of mine. I love him. Get his book, Grace Awakening, if you ever struggle with the subject of grace. His name is Charles Swindoll. He was just guessing when he said this, but he got one of the numbers in that quote exactly right when he said 10% of happiness is what happens to us in life. We've talked about that every week in this happiness series. It is circumstances outside of our control. Sometimes things work out great, sometimes they work out bad. 10% of life seems to be that. The first week of the Happiness Project, we learned about Sonia Yubomirsky. I don't know if you remember us talking about her, but she's the one who researched and confirmed exactly what Chuck Swindoll said. And Chuck was a little generous about the power of attitude. He said it was 90%, but it's not 90%. Attitude really is 40% of the whole picture. Attitude is 40%. Remember, 50% of your happiness level is DNA, your genetics. Thank your mama and thank your daddy and thank your grandparents, because they're the ones who passed it down to you. Some are just naturally happier than other people. And then 10% above that 50%, that's what happens, good or bad. You have misfortune, you have a wreck, you lose a job, but it's not your fault. Those things just happen in life. Or you get a blessing you weren't expecting, those things happen. But 40% is what we do with it. I'm glad Chuck overestimated the importance of attitude. It lets us off the hook a little bit. It's not 90%. But it doesn't really let us off the hook that much. It really is the ball game. That 40% of what you do with your attitude is the difference in life. Some other things we learned about. We learned that genetic inheritance is like a set point. In other words, without considering attitude, there is a set point all of us have about where our basic happiness level is. When good things happen, happiness bumps up a little bit. When bad things happen, happiness bumps down a little bit. But after a time, we all return to our basic set point where we are based on our DNA. The first week, and this is a long time ago, but many of you were here that first week when we started this series, we also learned that human beings are remarkably bad at understanding how we can shift that happiness baseline from a consistent flat line, which is what it would be, a consistent flat line with only an occasional bump up or bump down, to actually a moving slope that goes upwards as we truly understand happiness. This was a depressing week, but I remember talking about it. We discovered more money won't get us on that slope. And I know that sounds crazy, and I want all y'all to make more money. I want everybody here to have a wonderful job opportunity, make more money, and then give some to the Village Church. That would be fabulous. I'd love that. Everybody tells me when they win the lottery, they're giving it to the church. It's like, don't wait for that. Don't wait for that. Have a good job and make more money, but it won't make you in the long term happier. Reaching external goals that you set for yourself won't in the long term make you happy. We call that the arrival fallacy. When I get here, mark my words, when I get into my new house, I'm going to be happy. Mark my words, when I get that job I've been looking at for a long, long time, I'm going to be happy. Mark my words, when I get down to a 32-inch waist, I'm going to be happy. That's an arrival fallacy, and it's not true. Now, there is a footnote to the point. Reaching internal goals, that does seem to contribute greatly to genuine happiness. Having better, more awesome stuff doesn't make you happier. Finding true love doesn't really make you happier. Or having a perfect body doesn't make you happier. There should be a funny line there, but I couldn't think of it. I was thinking something funny I should say there, but I couldn't think of what it would be. So that was what it was the first week. It was slightly depressing, but it was basically everything that we've thought our whole life and everything that advertising says we're supposed to go after. None of that really works. The second week, though, in this study, and I hope you'll go back. We're putting this into a book form, so this book is going to be published in the next couple of months. You're going to have this book. We're going to probably create some curriculum that will be able to be used in small groups to actually look at this over a 12-week period as a good study. Very interesting. The second week, we started learning about a set of tools that really can and really do improve happiness levels for people who learn how to use them and really put them into practice. In total, we talked about 12 tools. You probably know them by heart by now. I know they'll be on the screen, but let me just say them. Savoring, gratitude, kindness, social connectedness, exercise, sleep, courage, justice, knowledge, wisdom, temperance, and transcendence. I want to go back through those quickly because I want to let you just kind of remember what they were. Then I'm going to share just one new thought about 3 levels of happiness, and then I think we have a really cool way to close. So stay with me. Let's talk about these quickly. The first one we talked about was savoring. How many were here when we talked about savoring? Do you remember that? That was one of my favorite talks because that's a word, well, actually what it means is pausing in life to revel in a moment or in an experience. To just pause and revel in a moment or experience, to taste something and just hold that taste in your mind for just a moment. Before the Happiness Project, the only time I thought about the word savoring was when I was eating, and because I eat really, really fast, I didn't think about it a lot then. I just kind of put it in, right? But that word came out in our study, and I thought, I like that word. And I never will forget, after that message that Sunday, one of the great joys of my life, and this may not make sense to you, but it just thrilled me. I think Crystal talking about Shantae, or Shantae talking about Chris, somebody, one of y'all said savoring their relationship and the beauty of the life that they had. And then somebody else here used that word savoring, and it's like, yes, somebody got it. That's awesome. That was a beautiful thing. We also talked about gratitude. That's taking time to both internally and externally appreciate good things and good experiences. Listen, if I could say one thing to you to be happy, I'd say learn to be grateful for everything. Just learn to have gratitude, just bubbling out of you for everything. Charles Dickens, the great writer, said this: reflect upon your present blessings, of which every man has many, not your past misfortunes, of which all men have some. What are you going to focus on? Neil Pasricha, author of The Happiness Equation, says this: if you can be happy with simple things, then it will be simple to be happy. And I think that's a good turn of a phrase. Robert Emmons and Michael McCullough divided students into 3 groups. One group was instructed to write down 5 things that they were grateful for that had happened in the past week. Just 5 things they were grateful for in the week. A second group was instructed to write down 5 hassles they had experienced in the past week. And then a third group was asked to simply write down 5 things that happened to them, good or bad, over the past week. Tested later, the students who practiced gratitude were not only happier, but they reported being healthier. For those of you who want a little challenge and you want to improve your happiness by being serious about gratitude, you can do the same thing. Call it the 5 gratitudes. Once a week, write down 5 things in the week you were grateful for, or once a day, or once a month. Write those 5 things down. You do that, and I guarantee your happiness will grow. Then we talked about kindness. Ethan talked about this. It was wonderful. Kindness is doing something extra for others without any expectations of receiving anything in return. And y'all, we have some very kind people in our church, and that was encouraging to me. When I hear stories about kindnesses that have been done, that blesses me. Do you know Michael Mason and some of the other people at our church? Do you know not only do they have the cafe in the mornings to be able to provide food for anybody who wants to come and enjoy it, and coffee for anybody who wants to come and enjoy it. And by the way, not everybody here woke up in a lovely home where they had a coffee maker to make their coffee. For some people, this is a real joy to have coffee here. But not only do they do that, they then make sandwiches and make little bags of food, and they take it out after church and they share it with people who are living on the streets just to show kindness. It blesses me when I hear that somebody has had a baby in our church or something has happened in our church, and I find out a couple like Ethan and Rachel or Ray and Ma or somebody in our church has made a lunch or a dinner, and they have taken it just to be able to say, we know you've just come home from the hospital and here is some food. We want to bless you. Kindness, a big deal when you think about happiness, genuine happiness. Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology, said this: we scientists have found that doing a kindness produces the single most reliable momentary increase in well-being of any exercise we have tested. Isn't that amazing? Scientists say we can't test anything that improves happiness more so than kindness. Profound. Then we talked about social connectedness. Again, that was Ethan's week. That's having a tribe around you that works together to make life survivable. A healthy tribe helps us grow, and a healthy tribe helps us thrive. I remember talking about this study, famous Harvard study that was conducted over the course of 75 years that tracked the lives of 724 people. Half were privileged sophomores attending Harvard, and half were younger boys from poor families living in unstable neighborhoods in Boston. Do you remember this 75-year study? Rich or poor, over the course of 75 years, the men who had good, strong relationships were happier, healthier, and they lived longer than people who didn't have good, strong relationships. I love that about 26 years ago, when I was wrestling with God, me sensing God wanted me to start this church, that I chose the name Village for this place. We come here week after week to connect, to encourage, to comfort, and to love. The Village is a community of wonderfully unique people who don't really need to be taught that social connectedness makes us happier, because we really do experience it here week after week, month after month, year after year. Then we talked about exercise, the physical activity that changes the chemical mix of how we experience life. We said just 3 vigorous 30-minute walks per day were found to reverse clinical depression. And y'all, I promise, I hear a lot of preachers say things that scientifically is not true. And I just want you to know, when I say something like that, I have checked it and rechecked it and rechecked it and rechecked it, because I don't want to say something that's going to make you turn from science when maybe the science is good. This is a true statement. 30-minute walks 3 times a day reverses clinical depression. Amanda Hyde from Penn State said this: we found that people who are more physically active have more pleasant activated feelings than people who are less active, and we also found that people have more pleasant activated feelings on days when they are more physically active than usual. I told you that my wife gets up at 4:30 in the morning 3 days a week. She goes to the gym. She gets to the gym at 5:30, and she does a boot camp kind of a workout for 1 hour. Now, I can tell you the truth as an observer of my wife, those 3 days, the other day she gets up at 7:30. So it's 4:30 3 days a week, hard exercise. The other days gets up at 7:30. I guarantee you there's more energy on the days that she gets up. She has a brighter perspective on life. She is happier. I wish you could see her dancing around the kitchen at 6:30 or 7 in the morning when she's making breakfast. She is happier all the way because she has found a way to exercise. Then we talked about sleep as the single most important behavioral experience that we have in life. This has been a mantra that we have said over the last year more than any church in the country. I don't know many churches that talk about sleep as much as we do, but we think it's that important. We all need at least 8 hours of sleep. As adults and children and adolescents need more. We talked about that. Review the message online if you've forgotten. And failure to get enough sleep shortens life expectancy, increases risk of death due to accidents, and makes us miserable and prevents us from being as healthy and happy as we're meant to be. I have taken sleep more seriously. I'm trying to every night get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and I think it's important. Then we talked about courage. I don't know if you remember that. Courage is the decision to move forward through fear or through pain or through grief. The Bible has a lot to say about courage. I like that we are trying to be encouraging about encouragement and discouraging about discouragement. I've always liked this thought: success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts. It's never as great as you think it is, it's never as bad as you think it is. You just gotta keep marching on, keep marching on. Have the courage to march ahead. Then we talked about justice. Justice is working to ensure life is fair for everybody. I love this talk. We can't happily climb the mountain while leaving our neighbors in the valley. When we try to do that, we grow calloused and we grow cruel. When I see people on Facebook that don't have a heart for people who maybe have missed out on a lot in life, maybe have not had the same opportunities, when they have a hard heart towards them, I don't understand it. I want everybody to have opportunity. I want everybody to be able to participate. I want everybody to be able to have a chance. It's one of my favorite and unexpected lessons from the Happiness Project. You know, when you first start, you have an idea that some things are going to be in this happiness pursuit, but I never had thought about justice, social justice. We learned that we're hardwired for fairness. This was a huge learning for me. We are hardwired for fairness, and when life isn't fair for us or for our neighbors, authentic happiness becomes impossible. Do you remember what we learned from the Emory University study of the capuchin monkeys? Do you remember that? They were having to give a stone to the scientist. The scientist would give them a cucumber, but this one he gave a grape to. And this little monkey's like, are you kidding me? He gets another cucumber back, but he just saw his friend get a grape. And he said, no, phooey, I don't want the stupid cucumber. I want a grape. Give me a grape. And we said that they did this study, and the longer they did this study, even the monkey getting the grape, the one on the right, even the monkey on the right eventually rejected the grape because he said, in the monkey mind, it's like, no, my buddy needs a grape too. My buddy needs a grape too. I thought that was brilliant, and it touched something very deep in me. Justice really matters. Then we talked about knowledge that equips us to make better decisions in life, and with better decisions, a lot of our frustrations begin to diminish. Ascribed to many, I like this quote: live as if you were to die tomorrow, but learn as if you were to live forever. Isn't that great? I mean, you do today what you would do if you knew you were going to die tomorrow, but you live today and learn today as if you're going to live for a long, long time. Keep learning, keep learning. Abigail Adams nailed it when she said, learning is not attained by chance. It must be sought for with ardor and diligence. Then we talked about wisdom. That's simply the ability to make good choices, to be able to take knowledge and apply it. And wisdom is not assuming, but asking the questions needed to get to the truth. Last week, Jane and I were sitting in our sunroom, and she was drinking a glass of wine. We were doing our best just to savor the day. And as the sun slowly sank below the trees in our backyard, Jane broke the soothing silence by saying, "I love you so much, I don't think I could ever live without you." I was a bit surprised, so I asked her, "Is that you talking or the wine talking?" And she said, "Silly, that's me talking to the wine." And I said, I understand. That's wisdom when you can ask the question, right? You don't want to assume anything. So we did talk about that. Then we talked about temperance. That's enjoying what's wonderful about life in a balanced, healthy way. I love that. Temperance wasn't about don't do stuff. Temperance was about learning how to live life in a healthy, balanced way. I grew up where you were told, don't do this. Just X, can't do this. But temperance, true temperance is no, learn to live life balanced. That's the more beautiful picture. Then we talked about transcendence, which is that we're a part of something bigger than ourselves. And that was my favorite of all. That was last week. I love the stories in the Bible when people realized that they have been in the presence of God and they didn't even know it. Are those great stories? I think about the guys that were on the road to Emmaus and they were with Jesus and they didn't even realize it was Jesus, and then he leaves and it's like, wow, we were in his presence, we didn't even know. I think about stories in the Old Testament where the prophet said to someone, can't you see we're surrounded by angels, and you don't even see it, you don't even know it. The Bible says we often attend to angels unaware. And Jesus said this, whenever you do anything for the poor or the marginalized, you're doing it for me. In other words, Jesus is in the middle of that transaction. Whatever it is, Jesus is right there. To me, that's all a beautiful picture of transcendence. Now, it isn't enough for me just to tell you about what the Bible says about those 12 tools, and it's not enough for me to cite scientific literature, although people have told me that that was helpful. We can receive information without ever becoming truly informed. Knowledge isn't enough. Neither is willpower. I thought this was interesting. Cornell University has a food and brand laboratory that's run by Brian Wansink. Brian Wansink has been responsible for over 1,200 studies on the eating behavior of humans, how we process eating. He says we make more than 200 decisions about food every day. 200 decisions about food every day. When you think about dinner, you make a decision about whether to cook at home or whether to go out and eat. With either of those choices, there's a decision tree that you're going to jump on. And it's easy to see how quickly you can get to the number 200. If you choose to eat out, you may choose to get an inexpensive fast food meal or slightly nicer meal, or on a special occasion, maybe you choose a fancy meal that's going to require dressing up. You're having to make these thoughts all day. You may choose to eat at Popeyes, where you'll decide on which meal deal is right for you and if it's mild or spicy. Spicy always for me. I love Popeyes. If you choose to eat at Bacchanalia, one of Atlanta's fanciest restaurants, you'll have to choose between 6 different things served in 4 courses. Wansink found our environmental cues have far more to do with choices we make about eating than our ability to make the choices in the first place. This will blow your mind. His research is responsible for the small plate movement. Y'all familiar with the small plate movement? People figuring that that's a better way to go. We eat less and are just as satisfied when plates are small compared to when plates are large and piled high with food. He says we all believe we're smarter than a bowl. We all believe we're smarter than the plate in front of us. But after 1,200 studies on how we eat, the most important way to change what we do is to change our environment. And if you want to eat less, start with a smaller plate. Here's the point. To turn all of these happiness practices into happiness habits, our best chance for success is to create an environment that is conducive to this practice. You get it? You want to eat less, start with a smaller plate. It's a good way to do it. You want to do these happiness practices and make them really become a part of your life, you've got to create an environment where it's just a natural part of how you live your life. It's not something rare that you do. It's not something, oh, I just read in my book, I'm going to go savor. No, it becomes a part of your life. It's extremely hard for me to practice savoring when I don't put myself in situations where I actually slow down and I savor and I'm grateful. I've started sitting in my backyard. This is real rare, but I've started sitting in my backyard about an hour a day and just trying to be grateful and trying to savor. And that is so out of character for the way I have lived all of my life, but I'm finding that it is helpful. I am changing my environment. I'm changing the way I do things. I'm not doing the same. Listen, when I married Jane, can I tell you something? I had failed relationships in my life. You know what I said? Almost every intuitive thought I have about how to be in a relationship, I'm going to assume is wrong. I'm going to stop, think, and probably do it differently than my natural personality would choose to do it. I want to create an environment where I am different because I want my relationship to work. In the same way, I want these happiness practices to work. I've got to put them into practice, and to do that, I have to change some of the ways I have chosen to live my life. Our environment really matters. If I'm surrounded by people who suck the life out of me every single day and they never ever feed me, I'm highly unlikely to effectively learn to practice gratitude. So I've got to put some people around me who build into me, who help me see the world as a more beautiful place, who help me see myself in a more beautiful way. Last night, a handful of us attended the Amy Copeland Foundation. It was a fundraiser for Amy Copeland, our dear friend that's spoken here twice. And she, on the stage in her wheelchair, delivered one of the most rousing speeches I have ever given. And here I am, I've heard it now several times. I know her story backwards and forwards, but I found myself crying. I found myself thinking about my own life. I found myself being so grateful for every little thing I have ever known in this world. I found myself totally thinking about things differently. You want to do better, you fix your environment to help you be around people like Amy Copeland, listening to people who are positive, who are going to say things uplifting, who are going to challenge you to live your very best life. If I spend my free time planted in front of a computer or planted in front of the television, I will not be motivated to make exercise a part of my life. I have done that. I am healthier today than I was when I was 25 years old. You know why? Because when I stopped playing football at 16, I didn't take a crack at anything physically for the next 30 years till I got into my 50s. Because I was sitting in front of the computer screen, sitting in front of the television, driving here, driving there. That's crazy. If exercise is important, I need to make that a part of my happiness practice. That helps me, and it also helps me sleep better when I exercise hard. In order for me to make kindness a habit, I need to put myself in situations where my abilities can meet your need. My social connectedness. It's not enough for me to know social connectedness helps. It's not enough for you to know social connectedness can help. If you leave here every Sunday without ever trying to meet somebody, without ever trying to be in some kind of a gathering with people, we had a meeting at our house this week, just a group of friends that didn't know each other, and it was the best meeting I have been in years. Because these wonderful people were like, well, I didn't even know you went to the village. I didn't know you went to the village either. And we have connections, and we're talking, and it's like, this is beautiful. But you just stay and just kind of say, that's not my deal. I'm not going to be social connected at all. You're not going to get the benefits of just knowing about it. You've got to be willing to put it into practice. When we're stuck in life, it's almost always because we haven't made environmental changes that give us enough strength to rise up, to do the things we need to do, to generate a new set of results. As we move from one tool to the next throughout this summer, we started with some very basic ideas. Then we moved to higher levels. I don't know if you realize that. We started at real general levels, just real general. Kindness, exercise, gratitude. But then it's moving up. We got into wisdom and knowledge and then transcendence. It was definitely a moving in that direction. There's a reason it unfolded this way. Happiness is defined by science as more than just a positive mood. It is a state of well-being that encompasses living a good life that has a sense of meaning and satisfaction. Happiness actually has 3 levels, and you can live a wonderful life without ever moving from one level to the next, but I want you to know these 3 levels. The most basic level is called the pleasant life, and I know many, many people who live the pleasant life. It's a life that successfully pursues the positive emotions about the present, past, and future. It's a good way to live. The happiness practices we've learned about involved in this basic level of happiness are savoring and gratitude and kindness and social connectedness and exercise and sleep and temperance. That's good. But there's a deeper level than just the pleasant life. It's the engaged life. It's the person that says, no, I've got some gifts, some character strengths in me that need to be put into practice. In order to understand the engaged life, you have to understand character strengths as defined by scientists. And here's what they are. They're positive parts of your personality that impact how you think, feel, and behave. They're different from strengths that you've developed, skills or talents or interests or resources that you have. Your character strengths reflect the real you. They're just that part of you that's never changed. It's in you. And when you put those things into practice, that gives you a real engaged life. Then we talked about transcendence, which leads us to the very final picture I want you to get of happiness, and that's what psychologists call the meaningful life. The meaningful life. That's the deepest level of happiness. You know what Jesus called that? Life in the kingdom of God. I don't know of anything that better sums up transcendence than that. And that's where I want to live. I want to be in the kingdom of God. And the kingdom of God is not one day way far out there. That's the craziest misunderstanding of Scripture that's ever happened. That's not what the kingdom of God is. It's where I see things through God's eyes, not through my natural eyes. It's when I appreciate everything in life as a great gift. It's when I take care of my body and my mind because I realize God lives here. God lives here. I am God incarnate, God in flesh. It's true. Not only was it true in Jesus, uniquely true, it's true for you and me. God in us. Do you not know, Paul said, you are the temple of God. Where I learn from life that there are haves and have-nots, and I'm supposed to care for the have-nots. Where I see people that are underdogs, and I say, you know what? In every case, God stood with the underdog. In every case, Jesus went out of his way to embrace the underdog, and so I am going to be a friend to the underdog. Where I see God everywhere and in everything. That's that beautiful, transcendent life. There's a TV series that recently ended called Nashville. Anybody watch Nashville? Anybody? We don't have a lot of Nashville watchers. It was a great series. Jan and I liked it very, very much. It was a melodramatic nighttime soap opera that people tended to either really love or really hate. And it's about a few people in the music business in Nashville and their interconnected lives. One of the unique things about the show was that songwriters wrote original songs for the various characters, and the music was always over the top fantastic. Most of the songs were only sung once or twice, but one song that was written by Ashley Monroe and Sarah Siskin was so special, it became the heart of the show. This song appeared multiple times in different episodes, sung by different people in different settings, but it became a real big deal. It was almost like a hymn. That song just was repeated over and over again. It kept coming up. I want to share the lyric with you in closing, because there's no greater way I can think of explaining the meaningful life than the words to this song. It's really what the Happiness Project has all been about. Here are the lyrics. Sitting here tonight by the firelight, it reminds me I already have more than I should. I don't need fame, no one to know my name. At the end of the day, Lord, I pray I have a life that's good. 2 arms around me, heaven to ground me, and a family that always calls me home. 4 wheels to get there, enough love to share, and a sweet, sweet, sweet song. At the end of the day, Lord, I pray I have a life that's good. Sometimes I'm hard on me when dreams don't come easily. I want to look back and I want to say I did all that I could. Yet at the end of the day, Lord, I pray I have a life that's good. 2 arms around me, heaven to ground me, and a family that always calls me home. 4 wheels to get there, enough love to share, and a sweet, sweet, sweet song. At the end of the day, Lord, I pray I have a life that's good. At the end of the day, Lord, I pray I have a life that's good. That, my friends, is what happiness is all about. And now I'm going to say a quick prayer, and Rachel's going to sing that song. God, we thank you for this moment. We thank you for this series on happiness. And we thank you for this beautiful song. Bless us now as we listen to it. In Jesus' name.
Sitting here tonight by the firelight, it reminds me I already have more than I should. I don't need fame. No one at the end of the day, Lord, I pray that I have a life that's good. 2 arms around me, heaven to ground me, and a family who always calls me home. 4 wheels to get there, enough love to share, and a sweet, sweet, sweet song. At the end of the day, Lord, I pray I have a life that's good. Sometimes I'm hard on me when dreams don't come easy. I want to look back and say I did all that I could. At the end of the day, Lord, I pray I have a life that's good. 2 arms around me, heaven to ground me, and a family who always calls me home. 4 wheels to get there, enough love to share, and a sweet, sweet, sweet song. At the end of the day, Lord, I pray I have a life that's good. At the end of the day, Lord, I pray I have a life that's good.
Amen. My brothers and sisters, may you discover the beauty of happiness. May it radiate in you. And may you always remember, 50%, that's DNA. 10%, what happens to you. 40%, that's the game. Let's be happy, happy, happy people. You're dismissed.
My Lord, how happy day.